Welcome back to Long Island's #1 pro wrestling broadcast. Monty DeFaro, only seen here out of Tin Mirror Studios, Kings Park, Long Island. Tony, we switched studios, so I'm trying to get that whole shtick down because, we've been calling the other studio's name for years, so trying to break that habit. Very rarely does Monty DeFaro ever get butterflies when they're having an interview. We've had all major icons in here, but the guy that's sitting on the couch right now is one of the ultimate icons in this wonderful world of professional wrestling. And I got to tell you, I'm sitting next to him. The dude is jacked. He's in great shape. And I don't know how else to say it, but it's fucking Tony Garea, man. Tony Garea in studio, and I don't even know what to say, brother.
Thank you, Monty.
Thank you. My partner Jimmy is in Florida, and we're still trying to work through some stuff. I know he is really missing this interview, Tony. He is a huge fan of yours, and I just want to say, Jimmy, we love you, and we miss you, and I really wish you were here. But, Tony, what brings you to Long Island, New York, my friend?
Well, evidently Monty and the Phantom bring me to New York. But it's good to be here. This is where I got my big break in the wrestling business, was the New York territory. And it's good to be here, and I know this is where the majority of my fans are, right here in New York.
Before we get going here, I think it's really important to say, like, when I was younger, and I tell a story. Jimmy, my partner, he got me into pro wrestling. I totally was like, I'm not a pro wrestling guy. That stuff's like bullshit, right? Whatever. But I want to know if you understand what you meant to fans of my age, right? I'm 57, so that 50 to 65-year-old range. What Tony Garea, the wrestler, meant to all of us. Has that sunken in on how important you are to the industry?
No, I really haven't given it a lot of thought. I know I've had people come up to me when I've been out in public places, and they are firemen, they are policemen, they're, plumbers, carpenters, electricians, and they come, I used to watch you when I was a kid, and I'm looking at the guy, and he's only a few years younger than me. I said, how the heck can that, possibly be? But I remember one instance, there was a lady came up to me. She said, excuse me, are you Tony Garea? I said, yes, I am. He said, and she turned around and she gave the thumbs up to her husband, and he was a cop from West Haven, Connecticut. And then he came over, but he had to send his wife over to make sure. And I thought, it's quite a compliment, to be recognized. And even at this time, just the other day, I was in the gym down in Cocoa Beach, and somebody come up to me, and they were from New York, and they say, are you Tony Garea, the wrestler? And I said, yeah, and he put the thumbs up, to his friends, and they all come over and ask me questions, which, I don't mind answering. What the hell am I going to say? We're in the gym, we're kind of locked in there together. But very polite, and, they tell me stories about, adjusting the antenna so they can get channel 9 out of New York.
WOR, man. WOR.
Oh, yeah. WOR, yeah, I remember that. And I was living in Connecticut at the time, and one brother would go up on the roof and turn the, and the other guy said, okay, just a little bit more, and then when they got a good signal, say, okay. And this was at midnight.
Oh, yeah.
And people those guys used to sleep till like 11:30 and set the alarm and then get up, and set the antenna so they could watch an hour.
So now you're killing me right now, because that's what we used to do. And I think if I remember right, the Trotters were on at 11:30, and then it was like pro wrestling on
Yeah.
WR Channel 9, and there was Tony. Here's the other thing, Tony, to be honest with you. A lot of these guys come in, and again, Jimmy and myself, we're just fans, but you can see, like, look, you're an older guy, right? We all age, but you look like Tony Garea. Like, if I saw you on the street, I'm like, oh, shit, that's Tony Garea.
Yeah.
Like, there wouldn't even be a question.
Well, actually, I've shrunk about 2.25 inches, I believe, and I've gained about 40 pounds.
Well, I'm going to tell anybody at home that's watching, right? This dude is jacked. He's huge. All right, most important question before we even get going. And this, as a kid, it's funny I'm saying as a kid, but I was a kid when I was watching. You know what I mean? A kid, a teenager. Your tattoo, right arm. What does it mean?
Yeah, it doesn't mean anything.
Not that one. The one on the bicep. The one on that huge bicep of yours.
That's just the tiger with palm tree. It's just something I had in my mind, and I asked the guy. And I was 16 when I got these on, so I was just a kid. And I think with the tattoos, I think this one might have cost $2.50. Yeah, $2.50. And now, my son's got both arms tattooed, from the fingertips, right to the shoulders.
Right.
I don't know, he must have $100,000 worth of tattoos.
That you ain't kidding. They got to cut his skin off when he passes away. But I just remember when you were wrestling, obviously, huge guy, big fan, and I was like, what is that tattoo? Like, what does that... For years, I mean, I can end this interview right now. You've answered my question. I did not know what that tattoo meant to you, so that's pretty cool. Were you always a tattoo guy, or? No,
not really. I did the first one on my left arm, and it was like a bad Donald Duck caricature, just of his head. And then I got that covered up with a rose with Mum under it, or Mom, as you say, over here. And then I went over here and got a dagger, like through my skin with Dad on it, D-A-D. And then I put an eagle on top of that. And then I went back to this arm with a dagger through a snake's head. Didn't mean anything. And then I got the tiger with the palm trees, and I got a couple of swallows on my shoulder.
Swallows. Yeah. Oh, my God. I forgot about the swallows.
And they've never been to Capistrano. Oh, Jesus.
All right. Look, you're a good-looking guy. How I'm assuming you might be in a relationship now, so we'll talk about the past. Women must have been all over you, dude. Getting women must not, and I'm talking about hot women, must not have been an issue for Tony Garea.
It was kind of second nature, I guess, but they were great. When they came to the ring, there was my, as I call him, my mentor, my good friend Jack Briscoe, He said, Tony, he said, look at them right in the eye, first, second row, find one or two women, and then when the heel has you in a hold, just grimace. And, look, I used to get them crying, but they had no idea because if they were crying or screaming or whatever, they'd carry it out to the audience. Like, I can't look up there at the 44th row and get eye contact, but I can get them down here, and it was, it was psychology, and I was, lucky enough to wrestle a lot of guys that understood the psychology of pro wrestling back then.
So were the women like, oh, Tony, let me take care of you. I feel so bad for you that Stan Hansen beat you up. I got to really help you out.
Yeah, and I said, well, could you wash my tights?
Those blue and red tights, man.
Yeah, blue. They're all gone now.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
Do you know how much those are probably worth right now?
Oh,
you probably buy a house with that. My God. Let's start off growing up in New Zealand. Tell me a little bit about growing up and your mom and dad. What was it like?
It was great over there because, we just had the essential. We didn't have a whole lot. We grew up in the suburbs of Auckland. That's where I was born. And I remember being like 5 years old, and a guy came from across the street, one of our neighbors, and asked my dad if I would be interested in playing rugby. Well, oh boy, I just about, because it's like New Zealand is rugby, racing, and beer, and probably in that order. And so I played my first game of rugby when I was about 5 years old, and then at school when we had the intermission, after lunch, we'd bring our gear and we'd play, a game of rugby, and I'm only 5, 6, 7, 8 years old. And then my father bought an orchard up north of Auckland, and we had a 20-acre orchard. And he'd probably go to jail now, because when we came back from school, I had a younger brother and a younger sister. We'd go down to the orchard that Mom and Dad had picked apples all day, and there'd be 300, 400 bushels of apples.
Jeez.
And we'd pack them on a trailer that would only hold 50, and we'd take them up to the packing shed and unload it, and then go get another one. And then when that was finished, we'd go have dinner. Then we'd go back to the shed and grade the apples, Oh, you can't do that to a child anymore,
Right.
But that was growing up. And then I took care of also my neighbors. He was an elderly gentleman that had a business in Auckland, and he had 1,500 chickens. And I used to let them out in the morning, and then at night I'd come back and I'd feed them, and then I'd collect the eggs, and I'd wash the eggs and put them in a 30 dozen container. It holds 30 dozen eggs, and then they'd go off to market. And I was like,
I got to
8,
ask you
9,
a question
10,
about
11,
that
12.
then, because I learned some stuff from my wife, right? So when the chicken has the egg, if you don't wash it, you don't need to refrigerate it. So if you wash it, does it have to go in the refrigerator then?
No, it never went in the refrigerator.
Really?
And even today in New Zealand, you have the eggs packed in the dozen and the dozen and a half containers, and they're on the shelf in the grocery store. And, that's the way I remember it all my life back there. And then you go back, and that's the norm. But you come over here, and the chickens are in the refrigerator.
Yeah, wow.
I mean, not the chickens,
The eggs, right, yeah.
Yeah, but the chicken came first.
So, well, yeah, that's true. Interesting statement you made, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're a U.S. citizen now, right?
Yes, yeah.
So, U.S. citizen. What are you thinking about the state of the country right now?
Oh.
Today's youth, what's going on? What's Tony Garea think?
Well, I give you, for instance, I got 7 grandsons, and I've got 1 granddaughter. Now, I've got 1 grandson, he's 31 years old. He had a problem with alcohol, but he straightened himself out. Now he works for Eversource in Connecticut, and he's also, the last couple of years, he's been putting in fiber optic cable. Now, he's working in Connecticut, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, North Carolina, South Carolina, and he's got a job out in Scranton, Pennsylvania. So he called his cousin, who's 21 years old, and he's going to Wilkes-Barre University, and asked if he'd be interested, and his roommates, college mates, doing some work. I said, oh, no, we're not interested in that. Downright lazy, but I got this 31-year-old that, in a couple of years, he'll be a millionaire, just through hard work. And I don't understand it. Down in Florida, where I live now, my neighbor has a 19-year-old. I hadn't seen her for a long time, and I said, how's your boys? He said, well, the eldest one's out of school. I said, is he working? He said, well, he tried to be an electrician, but he said it was too hard. So I for the life of me, can't figure out I couldn't wait to get to work. I dropped out of high school about 2 months before I turned 15. I could leave at 15.
Right.
And I couldn't wait to go to work. And I worked in a men's clothing store, and then after that I delivered paint and wallpaper, to the painters. And then I worked in a rope factory. Then I went down and I worked in the forest for a while, planting trees, pruning trees. I had one job, 32-foot pruning, didn't last long. I got on a 10-foot ladder, wrapped it around the trunk of the tree, stood on the ladder, put the safety belt on, bent down, which I can't do anymore, pulled the ladder up between my legs and then climbed it. So there's 20 feet between my feet and the ground. Wow. And then I've got a 6-foot, I was 6 foot at the time, and I got a 6-foot saw, and I'm pruning the trees. So the trees would go straight up, so you get a good log out of it. And then after that, I went using explosives on a dam site that they were building a dam with 2 million cubic yards in it for a water reservoir for the city of Auckland. And I was blowing up the big rocks that were on the dam site. They were too big. Like if they were 4 feet, 6 feet through, I'd find a little ledge on it, put a little clay there, put a piece of gelignite about 2.5 inches, load it up with a detonator and a fuse, and then light them and then run like hell. And, they'd, of course, blow up because they only needed rocks maybe 8 to 10 inches in diameter. So I did that, and then I drove a truck, and that was about it.
So how do you become a professional wrestler? That you're doing all this stuff. How does that happen?
Well, I came back to the city, and then I always wanted to, play rugby in the top clubs. So I started working out, and that was a no-no. That was 1964. And say, oh, you can't work out, you get muscle bound, you can't run, you can't do this, you can't tie your shoes, you can't do any damn thing. And now everybody's got to be in the gym. If football player, sure, rugby player, whatever, basketball player, everybody goes to the gym. So I played for this rugby club, and there were 2 professional wrestlers, and they were playing in the 2nd grade. I was in the senior rugby team, and they was in, what did they call them? Senior reserves.
Okay.
So if they needed another person up there in the seniors, they'd pick from the senior reserve. So I got picked actually the 2nd year I played. And I remember the first game I was on first reserve, and I was nervous as hell, and I didn't play. So they sent me up to play for the senior reserves, which was after our game, but it was at another field. So I went up there, and I played like my life depended on it. It was a real good game, and we beat these people, the opposing team too. And anyway, these wrestlers, they asked me if I'd be interested in wrestling. I said, sure. So they had a training facility. They invited me, and it was like a carpet that was down on a basketball court. So we used to take all our bumps on that.
Wow.
And there was no ring, so there was no ropes. We didn't use the ropes at all, but it was all like top wrist lock, hammer lock, headlock, take over, pick up, slam. And anyway, I got through that, and I think I had my first match in August of 1969.
And this is in New Zealand?
In New Zealand,
okay.
Yeah. And then the promoter said he wanted me to give up playing rugby. Well, that was, my life.
Right.
And it was a social activity, too. You'd beat the pants out of each other for 80 minutes, and then you go out that night and drink all night.
Well, let me hold you there real quick. So your dad obviously loves rugby, too.
Yeah.
So you come home to Dad and say, hey, Dad, you know what? I have to give up rugby. I'm going to be a wrestler. Mm-hmm. What does Dad say to you? Yeah,
well, I remember him saying when I mentioned about being a wrestler, he says, oh, you have to be cut out for that kind of thing, And unfortunately, the first year I was here, my dad passed away. He got married late in life, and I think he was 58 when I was born. So he was like 85, when he passed away. Mm. But he, his organs start to fail him, He was still sharp up here. He was from Croatia, and I was trying to think, you know, even his cousins were sharp. Like one was 92 years old, and they never lost their minds. And I'm thinking maybe it's olive oil. I don't know,
Wow.
but I think it was. And today, and I've been doing it for a while, I have a teaspoon of olive oil every day.
I think I'm going to start taking some olive oil, man. I had to catch up.
Yeah.
So you're wrestling in New Zealand.
Mm-hmm.
How do you come over to the States? How does that even work?
Well, I'd kind of, put wrestling on the back burner because I wanted to play rugby. And then they came to me in 1971, the New Zealand promoter who worked with Jim Barnett, who was the promoter in Australia at the time. And he said, Tony, they want somebody in Australia for like 10 days, and they'll pay you $250. And I said, oh, yeah, because I'm only making, if I had a $50 week, that was a lot. So
Which
I said,
was
well,
probably good money back then, too, right? It's not bad.
Well, it wasn't bad. It was about, I think, $1.50 an hour or something like that.
That's pretty shitty.
Yeah. So anyway, I went over there, and the idea was that they had a bulldog, Bob Brown, I think, was coming to Australia. So they wanted, as a heel, they wanted him to beat the crap out of some young, guy over there, because nobody knew who the heck I was. And that didn't happen. And Jim Barnett kept me for 8 weeks, and then he said, well, I'd like you to come back sometime, if that's all right. I said, yeah, sure, that'll be all right. So I went back home, and I continued, doing my job, which was concreting at the time. And then he called me about 10 weeks later. He said, I'd like you to come back. Can you get over the boat? Okay. So I don't know whether he sent me the ticket or I don't know how it happened. And I went over that time, and I stayed for 12 weeks, and I was able to save a little bit of money. And then he said to me, would you like to go to the States and wrestle? He said, I think you do very well. And I said, okay, because I was told by the local boys, the Australian boys that wrestled, he'd only ask you one time. He wouldn't ask you again.
Right.
So I just said, okay. So there was another Australian wrestler there, Johnny Gray. So the idea is we would go together. So I went back home, and now I'm waiting for my visa. But I don't think it's going to come. So I get in shape for rugby. And then the visa came. But I'm down to 210 pounds, and I just feel, I'm too light, But anyway, I went back to Australia, and I hooked up with Johnny Gray, and then we flew over here and landed in Tampa, I believe, March 18th, 1972. But Larry O'Day and Ron Miller from Australia, they were there as the Australians. Mm-hmm. So we had somebody to meet us. They took us to a hotel, and then we had our first match, Johnny and I, in Orlando, Florida, against J.C. Dykes and the Infernos. And that was the start of it. But I thought I'd stay for a year. And then about 5 months into it, Johnny was engaged, and he was getting homesick. So I said, well, you got to do what you got to do. So I couldn't afford the apartment by myself because I wasn't making enough money. And I moved in with a couple of other guys, and just split the rent. It was all right splitting the rent, but I couldn't afford. And I think the rent was only about $240 a month.
Now, again, maybe I missed it. Is this Atlanta you're working at?
No, this was Tampa.
Tampa, okay.
Yeah,
gotcha.
Tampa, Florida.
Gotcha.
In the meantime, Jack Briscoe was down there and befriended Jack, and he invited me to his place on Sundays because Sundays were off. And then he gave me a heck of a lot of points about the business, do this, do that, and how to protect myself in the business against bullies,
Right.
which, I really didn't. There was only one instance, I thought the guy was being a little bit of a dick, and I had him put me in a headlock, and then I slipped my right leg in front of his right leg, and I pushed him in the butt, and I grabbed his left leg, and all he could do was go down. And then I hooked his leg, and that's about all I knew, though,
Right.
But he got the message.
Can you share that dick's name?
Well, he's passed away now, so I don't know.
What?
Actually, I'll give you his initials.
Go ahead.
Bill White.
There you go. Very good. Listen, not many fans may know this. You were the NWA World Tag Team Champion with the great Pat Patterson. Is that accurate?
out in '76, and
What type of person was Pat Patterson, and how close was your relationship with him?
yeah. Well, it wasn't that close because he had a boyfriend.
Well, I know. Yeah,
So-
right. I got
But
you. Very funny.
Anyway, I considered Pat, a good friend, and Louis, his boyfriend, and they invited guys up to their place for for a party on Sundays because we're up when we were in San Francisco, But Pat had a great sense of humor, and vodka was his favorite drink. I don't know if he drank it with tonic or club soda. I can't remember that. But and then of course when Pat came out here, he was under Vince, and then it was me, Jack Lanza, Chief Jay Strongbow, George the Animal Steele, Rene Goulet. We were all road agents at the time, so Pat was the go-to guy. You talk to Pat, he'd give us the rundown, and we'd run the shows. But I got on well with Pat, and Pat got on well with everybody.
Was Pat as brilliant as everybody said as far as wrestling goes?
Oh yeah, he'd come up, and he wasn't afraid. I remember one time he had a tag match. No, it was a single match. He said, Tony, he said, come here, I need to talk to you. He says, it was one of the Hardy Boys, I think Jeff, and I don't know who he was wrestling. He said, I have to get him out of the ring. I think it must have been a tag match. And I gave him my suggestion, well, have the guy just pull him out, have the referee, as the heel is beating the crap out of him, just have the referee push him back. So the referee's back is to it, and have his partner, pull him out. And I said, oh, good. So he elaborated on that,
Right.
but he got the initial sense of, well, if we do this, then he was able to extend that. And it just worked out fantastic. But he wasn't about as smart as he was with the wrestling business. He wasn't above asking somebody, and I wasn't, I wasn't that on top of, finishes and things to
Sure.
do. I had a few, and when the guys wrestled and I was the agent, just go in, like Gorilla Monsoon told me when I was wrestling, just go what you think is right, and if it's not, we'll tell you when you get back. I used to have fun with some of the young guys, they do something wrong, and I talk to them about it, and I said, well, next time, just remember this, and they go out and they do what I suggested. One guy I had to beg. I said, please do it, and if it doesn't work, I knew it was going to work. He said, just forget I ever talked to you about it. Oh, he was adamant about not, doing it. Oh, I can't see where that would work. It was something simple. And he did it, and he came back to me. He was looking for me, and I was hiding from him, and I could see him though. And he came back. He said, "Tony, did you see it? See what? What are you talking about? What we talked about? What did we talk about? Well, you said that. Did you do it? Yeah. And how was it? Oh, it worked like a charm, And I seen him 30 years later, and he still remembered that. And he come up to me, he says, I want to thank you again for what you did.
So you must have altered the guy's career then with that one
Oh.
suggestion, right?
Maybe, he was there for a while. He wasn't a, top guy, but he was in the middle and
Making money.
up and down, yeah.
You think that's the difference with old school wrestlers and new school wrestlers, that the newer guys don't feel like they have to take advice from
Yeah.
people like yourself?
Yeah, and those guys that didn't do it, like, I'll say, Randy Savage, I broke in with his dad. We used to work out together in the Sportatorium in Tampa in 1972. And, Bob is a fantastic worker. I work with Bob Orton, I work with the Junior, I work with Bob Orton Sr.,
Wow.
and I work with Barry O, so
Wow.
the only guy I haven't worked with is Randy, and I keep chasing him around, but he doesn't want anything to do with it.
He's scared. Randy's scared of you.
No, but I talked to him about matches, about his match, what he could do to improve it, and he said, and his dad was watching at home, because it'd be live Raw, and the next day I'd see Randy, I said, you talk to your dad? He said, yeah. He said exactly the same thing you told me. Yeah. Yeah, and look where Randy went, the best of the best.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Mm.
So back in the day, WWE guy, right? So, a lot of people talk about tribalism in sports and especially now tribalism in wrestling, right? And being from the Northeast, right?
Mm-hmm.
We only caught NWA or Georgia Championship Wrestling when cable came around.
Yeah.
But we still stood by guys like yourself. But
Yeah.
in the beginning, it was Tony Garea was always the tag team champion, and on the other end, there was Captain Lou Albano that always took the title from you, and then you would come back and take it. My partner, can you share maybe some stories about Captain Lou and your relationship with him, and also the unholy trio, right, of the Grand Wizard and Freddie Blassie? What were they like, and do you have any stories about them?
Well, the only story I got about the captain, we were wrestling in Providence in a 6-man, and he called me to give him a backdrop. I said, no, Lou, I'm not backing. Give me a backdrop. Give me a backdrop. Come on, you bastard. You backdrop me. So well, he wants a backdrop, because he takes the backdrop and sells his shit out of it, and he's all over the place. But with Freddie Blassie, I actually wrestled Freddie when in my youth.
Wow.
And, Freddie was up there a few years, and he was in the habit of giving me a low blow, and I said, that doesn't make any sense to me. I would sell the crap out of it, and then, but he'd give me 2 or 3 of them, in the same match, and I said, this doesn't work. So one time, I think it was in Manchester, New Hampshire, and he gave me a low blow, and I just sold the living bejesus out. I rolled out of the ring, so there's no way he could give me another one, So I got that one solved, It was just, I think as Freddie was getting older, he was looking for shortcuts, and he thought, that would be it. But I got that one solved, And the Grand Wizard, he'd be great. I got on well with all these guys, but the Grand Wizard would be like this. He'd come up and whisper in your ear, have you ever tried olive oil, vinegar, malt vinegar, and mustard as a salad dressing? It would be a big secret, and it'd be, and then I'd whisper in his ear, no, I haven't tried that one, and people would say, well, what the hell are they talking about? Angela Mosca. I loved Angie, and we'd be in the dressing room, and I'd be talking to Rick. I said, Rick, look over at Angela. So we'd both look at Angela. He'd be on the opposite side of the room, and then we'd go back. I said, okay, now look again. And he'd go, look again. What the hell are you guys talking about? He comes stomping over there. He was a great guy. He was a
Man,
great
the
guy.
memories and the names. You wrestled superstar Billy Graham at Madison Square Garden.
No, I didn't. I wrestled him in Philadelphia.
Philadelphia Spectrum.
Yeah.
How was that, and what was that crowd like?
Oh, the crowd was fantastic. It was the biggest crowd. I think they got completely sold out. But Bruno and Cran Patera were on the same card, so I got to give them some kudos. Probably a lot more. And I thought, I was driving down from Connecticut, and it was a beautiful day. There wasn't a cloud in the sky. I said, boy, there's not going to be anybody at the Spectrum, because Philadelphia being so close to Wildwood and Atlantic City.
Right.
I said, everybody's going to be at the beach. And anyway, at a signing a couple of years back, there was a guy, he said, boy, I seen you and Billy Graham at the Philadelphia Spectrum. You guys were serious. I said, yeah. He said, boy, that was a close match. You guys were close. So here's the story, giving away secrets. We locked up, and Billy pushed me back a little bit, and I pushed him, back a little bit. He said, you got any ideas? I said, well, let's see what happens here. So he pushed me back 1, 2, 3 paces. I went down on one knee, and I'm waiting. I hear the people coming, So then I got up and I started pushing them. They went nuts.
So you guys don't talk about the match at all. You're going in this match cold.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. I, Jack, going back to Jack Briscoe, he was telling me, you got to tell a story. And I had Iron Mike Sharp. We were in some little town, I think over by Asbury Park area, somewhere there. And Mike, I love working with Mike because he was go. So he put me in a headlock, right? And I got the headlock, and I thought to myself, Jack Briscoe, you tell a story. So Mike's a little bit bigger than me. So I start powering out of it, and I'm going up, and I get up, and usually the heel would grab my hair. So I'm up. I said, Mike, bring me down, but don't pull my hair. And he pulled me, so he out-muscled me, And then I'd try and throw him off, and he'd hold on, And then I tried the muscle thing again, and it didn't work. And then I'd try and throw him off, and, and he still had me. So then, and then he'd take me over. So now I'm on the ground, So we're, extending this headlock story. And then I tried to muscle him again the third time. I said, all right, Mike, grab my hair, and he grabbed my hair, put me back, and I pushed him into the ropes, and I threw him off, and he gave me a tackle. I dropped down, leapfrogged him, hip tossed him, and drop kicked him, and he went out through the rope. The crowd went absolutely nuts.
Tony, first of all, we could do this for hours because you just forget about it. But I want to get back to superstar Billy Graham, but then I have to ask you a question with the Mike Graham thing. Why do you think today's wrestling audience doesn't respect that kind of slow-down wrestling you used to do back in the day?
Well, I think the audience has been programmed, by the television and what they see on the TV. And of course, it's a whole new generation, and a lot of guys, from our generation, they don't watch it anymore. I have a hard job watching it because I see so much time is wasted doing stuff that isn't necessary. And I told Vince, when I left, I said, the guys don't sell anymore. What a waste. You picked up, I remember John Studd picked up and slammed me in the Carolinas on television. And I was close to the ropes, and I rolled out, and I sold the hell out of my back. I convinced everybody.
Well, of course, which you should,
Yeah.
right? I mean,
Yeah, and you don't have to do anything. Like, less is more.
Yeah.
A lot of times. And I think that's the reason, people have been educated. Well, and if I can say the wrong way, I would like to see some matches, old time matches. It might be slow, it might be a little boring, but in the beginning, but then you would get with it.
My partner's not here, but I can tell you, we both always felt like whatever happened to the double count out, the disqualification.
Yeah.
You never get that anymore. It was always incredible. I will talk about it because you were an agent, and I have to understand how you even dealt with it at some points. But I want to go back to Graham.
Yeah.
Graham is a champion, and again, I'm a fan, so please don't. If you think I'm stupid, just don't say it on air because I don't know, but I'm assuming from what I think I know.
Yeah.
If the champion is drawing money and you're on the undercard, you're going to make more money, right? You're getting paid on the house.
Yeah.
Graham beats San Martino. We know the story. And then Vince Sr. has this agreement where Backlund's going to become champion. Now, I love Bob Backlund. I grew up with Bob Backlund. At the time, I hated him, but now I love him. Was it a mistake taking the belt off of Graham? And I'll ask you this, as a wrestler and looking at your wallet, was it a mistake taking the belt off of Graham and giving it to Backlund? And then the other question is, now as an older statesman, was it a mistake taking the belt off of Graham and putting it on Backlund?
Yeah, I feel it was. I think Graham was hot. He was drawing money, and I think they could have kept it on him for another couple of years. I'm not a big fan of, change it. Oh, we got to switch. We got to switch here. Well, he's not drawing, so we got to switch the belt. But they'd programmed. This was Vince's program, to give it to Backlund, a clean-cut All-American boy. Because before that, they had ethnic champions, Morales and San Martino.
Sure.
And they done very well. But, I would have liked to see Billy, keep it a little bit longer.
So here's the harder question for you then. Backlund becomes champion. And again, growing up as a kid, I used to go to the Garden all the time. I remember it always being packed. With the wrestlers we've had in here, I'll just use Kevin Sullivan because he was the strongest about it. He said that Backlund could not carry the belt. They had to fill the card where they didn't have to do that with San Martino or Graham.
Yeah.
Was Backlund a draw or was he not a draw?
He was a draw. I found out, there were a lot of people that liked his style, and they, pay to go see him. But they did, stack the card, to be sure, like they brought Mil Mascaras in. He was in, quite often. And, he'd get a good payday, but I'd be on the card, and I just get the regular payday.
Did your pay ever change? Did your pay change when Graham was the champion and Backlund became the champion, or your pay always remained the same?
It pretty much remained the same because Vince Sr., I believe, that there was he'd make you X amount of dollars a week, like you were on a salary, but you didn't know it.
Right.
Because, 1 week you'd make $500. The next week you almost made $1,100. So it was up and down, but at the end of the year, like, let me see, 73 and 74, they were pretty close, and then I came back in 77, and my pay had gone up a little bit, but they were still close, 77, 78, and then I think 89, or is it
79 probably. Right?
Yes, 79, I think part way through there, I went down to the Carolinas, and, it just dropped off. It was a whole
different wax. And you're like,
I
want to stay up northeast, I think, right?
I wasn't included, But it was just to get me out. Like Vince Sr. said, when they stop asking for you, it's time to bring you back. Like I was in San Francisco the first time I left in 75, mid-75, went to Atlanta for 6 months, didn't work out there. Then I was asked to go to AWA Jack Lanza called me, and I thought I didn't have the ability to be in AWA. And the other thing was there was a lot of snow up there, and I didn't like snow. So I went to San Francisco because that was the learning territory.
Wait a minute, why didn't you think you had the ability for the AWA? Too much of a shooters up? Too many shooters up there?
No, I just didn't feel, I felt it was too early for me to go there. I didn't have the confidence, to go there because there were so many good wrestlers.
Like established superstars up there. Yeah. Okay, I gotcha.
Yeah, but Roy Shires, I got on well with Roy. A lot of people didn't like him, but, he called a spade, and, I was quite happy with that, if I'm doing something wrong, do that. And, I had conversations with him. He'd talk about when he was with Ray Stevens, him and Ray, and, Ray did this, and, Roy did this. And there was one time there, we had the San Jose on Wednesday, and he'd have the TV card for Thursday on Wednesday. So he's got me working with Jerry Monty, a local guy out there, and good guy, and he was a babyface, and I was a babyface. So I said to Roy, Roy, is this a babyface match? And he said, yeah. He said, why? I said, I want to think of some spots. He said, what, can't you handle it? I said, yeah, I can handle it. So, long story short, I had the match with Jerry. I put a couple of spots in there, that were, good spots, but nothing out of the ordinary,
right.
And when I came back from the ring, when the match was over, Roy was there, and he shook my hand. And the guy said, we've never seen him do that.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I don't know. It was just went out there, done what I thought I had to do, to get a good match. And Jerry was all right with that. And he shook my hand. He said, hell of a match.
What an amazing memory, man, you got, man. You're like a friggin' encyclopedia. Holy shit.
But I can't remember where I dropped my glasses.
No, they're right here on the desk. One of the greatest tag team wrestlers of all time up in the WWE.
Mm-hmm.
Haystacks Calhoun,
mm-hmm.
Dean Ho, Larry Zbyszko, and obviously the great Rick Martel.
Yeah.
Can you share any thoughts on all, the legend Larry Zbyszko, Haystacks Calhoun?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what were these guys like? And let's end it with like what you think about Rick Martel.
Yeah. Well, it was all new to me, and Haystacks used to come in here in the in New York area in the summertime because the kids were off, so, they got to see a big guy from the farm, with the coveralls and the horseshoe around his neck. And I never got it confirmed, but I think what was supposed to happen, and it didn't, Nick Barkwinkle and Ray Stevens was supposed to come here and beat Fuji and Tanaka.
Really?
And they canceled out. Now, maybe that didn't happen, but this is what I heard. And they canceled out, and then Haystacks was coming in, and I was the Rookie of the Year, and Vince Sr. liked to do something for the summer, set something up. So they threw me with Haystacks, and we won the belts. And I can almost thank Haystacks for being my partner. In the Garden one time, we wrestled 31 minutes, and I was in the ring for 27.
Well,
but,
wow.
Fuji and Tanaka they couldn't do a lot with him, So he started the match and took over on them, and then I went in and I shined for a little while, with my high spots with Fuji. Fuji helped me tremendously when I was young. And then they cut me off and they just beat the bejesus out of it. But I was trying to tag the whole time, whole time. And then when I finally made the tag, blew the roof off the Garden, and everybody was happy. And then then they brought Dean Ho in at the, Fuji's suggestion, I think, 'cause, being from Hawaii,
Mm-hmm.
and Fuji knew him over there, and he was like anti-martial arts, So that worked out good, and Dean was great. Unfortunately, Dean had a horrible passing. He was like 86, 85. I talked to his family. I said, well, now I know how old he is.
Yeah, wow.
Oh, it was, yeah. So that was a shame.
He was, in my opinion, he was very underrated. I thought.
Mm.
What do you think about that?
Oh, yeah. He was as strong as
Oh,
the bull. Yeah, but he had the, we drove together and we talked about the psychology of the matches, and then we had a little difference of opinion there with, you got to look strong. I wasn't that interested in looking strong. I just, wanted to be there and, have the comeback. So if I was too strong, I couldn't have a comeback.
You just wanted to get all the women that were in the crowd. Come on,
Yeah,
stop it
I
already.
want sympathy. I needed my tights washed. Yeah. And then Larry, we were, I don't know if it was in the garden. Larry told me the story the other day. But Monsoon was the agent, and he came. I was there, and Larry was there, and Monsoon said, "Oh, by the way, Larry, your last day's Tuesday." I thought, holy Jesus. So we went to TV on Tuesday, and you guys are working with Fuji and Tanaka, and you're taking the belts, or something like that.
Right.
And then we became champions. But when Larry first came here, he didn't have a place to stay, and I was by myself. So I said, Larry, come and stay with me till you find a place. So he stayed with me for, quite a few weeks, and I, found him a place to stay up there in Connecticut. And we stayed in Connecticut because I thought it was a central location between Bangor, Maine, and Washington, D.C.
Right.
So we could get home every night instead of. When I first came here, I stayed in southern New Jersey, and I spent like 8 days one time up in Boston in a hotel that was adjacent to the old Boston Garden. And I just drank too much.
Look at you logistically getting smart, putting yourself right in the center so you can drink at home safely.
Yeah. So, and then after Larry, Rick came in. And I talked to him, and Rick had been wrestling as long as I had, because he started when he was about 16, and I think he was 26. And I turned 26 on the day I done my first TV for Vince Sr. So, yeah, I was about 10 years older than him. And I was just like his new big brother, And Rick done his thing, and, I went out and, done his thing with him, and, we were just buddies, we hit it off. And then I give him some of the old wrestling advice, like when I was in Australia and talking to the, guys like Killer Kowalski, Killer Carl Cox, Spiros Arion, Don Lewin, that, and like, well, how much money can you make wrestling in the United States? Listen, kid, it's not how much you make, it's how much you save. And
You'd be big brother.
Yeah, and generally nobody had it. They didn't have a pot to piss in, a lot of the old time guys, because they made it. They went out and partied, and I mean, a few of them did. They weren't all like that, but
Now they all have gone to GoFundMe pages.
yeah.
Right?
But let me regress to Florida. There was a referee named Corsica Gene, and he gave me a book, and it said how I turned $500 into $1 million in my spare time. And the author was William H. Nickerson. And I read the book. I didn't have any money. So how the hell am I going to do this? So I read the book, and I kept it in the back of my mind. And then later on, I think I bought my first house here in 77, 78, thereabouts. And then I bought a 4-unit building and then I bought another house, and I rented all these things, and I'm flying by the seat of my pants. But I read another book by, forget it. I can't remember it. But
I have to ask you a question, though.
Yeah.
At the time you're doing all these financial moves, do you have a wife at this point?
Yeah.
And she's not bitching at you like, Tony, what are you doing spending all this money? What are you doing?
No. No, actually, she, she was really pretty good, but it was like my way or the highway type thing, Not that I was tough, but I didn't need a new toaster when the old toaster was working perfectly, And I just carried on my New Zealand therapy, when I came over here. So anyway, I talked to Rick about this, about buying places. Then my lawyer told me that they bought a building in New Haven, and there was no room for parking, so they went under the building. Well, Rick bought a building in Quebec, and he wanted to make a couple of more spaces to rent. There was a pharmacy there was a post office, there was a hairdressing salon. It was just a house, and it was all, an accountant's office, a lawyer's office, stuff like that. So he remembered I told about my lawyer digging under the house, so he started digging, and his father-in-law said, "You're crazy." But he went ahead, and he dug out, and he got 2 more rentals out of it. Yeah, and then he ended up with with an apartment house, and he done very well, and he thanked me for the advice.
From tag team partner to financial advisor. Look at that, dude.
Well, yeah, I was always good to 1 and 1 or 2, 2 and 2 is 22. Yeah, I was pretty good with my math, and I think part of that, though, was my mother. She'd do the expense on the orchard. Sold 20 bushels of apples for 50 cents, $10. Bought 100 pound of fertilizer, $20, and she'd add it up, and then I would go and add it too, and maybe that had something to do with it. I don't know.
Well, sounds pretty successful to me.
Yeah.
Vince, we're talking about Vince Sr. A lot of guys come in, they say, what a great man Vince Sr. is.
Oh, yeah.
What in your mind is the difference between senior and junior as a promoter?
Well, Vince Sr. had, Christmas time it was going to be slow, no matter what you did. Second week in January it was going to start to pick up. This was while I was here, Then January, February, March, and then April it would start to drop. April, May, June. Now you're getting ready for July and August, school holidays. So he'd do something for that, And then once they went back to school, September it was going to drop till about the second week.
So you're trying to say that WWE was a seasonal product?
Yeah, well, that's the way Vince Sr. run it, But then when Vince Jr. got in there, we had Snooker and Piper with the coconut, and that was around October, and the place just went ba-boom. It was like they dropped the bomb, and everybody run to the wrestling matches.
So do you think the senior was just too old school and junior had that new, fresh mind, how to promote and move it on?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And then, all the television stations around, they weren't given to Vince Jr. It just as the WOR, Channel 9 here. You had to buy the time.
Right.
You had to buy the time. And now Vince Jr. turned all that, or he bought the time on all these TVs in every city. And now
they buy it from him.
Yeah, they're buying it from him.
Amazing.
Yeah. I never seen that. I had no idea what the hell was going on.
On a personal level, growing up, Vince Jr. was like one of like my idol. Like I idolized him. I idolized his business mind and the way he thought. I have to ask you, these allegations against Vince Sr. Jr. at this point. What are your thoughts about that? This whole situation.
I can't see where it is happening. You know, there's no possible read. I mean, who the heck is going to? You're talking about that $3 million.
There's a Janelle Grant. Not that everybody doesn't know, but just so I can make it clear to everybody, Janelle Grant had supposedly had a relationship with Vince McMahon Jr. And she made allegations of sexual trafficking and sexual abuse. And there's one side that shows that there was consensual agreement between the two. And the other side is Janelle Grant's story. The Vince McMahon haters are all out blaming Vince, and now it seems like the worm is turning a little bit. It seems not to be the case. So my thought, and I know this is a very difficult subject for someone like you who has been loyal to that company for a very long time, and you've been on the wrestling end and the agent end, but who knows Vince Jr. better than Tony Garea? I guess my point to you is, to make it clear, why don't you think, I'm assuming you were saying this before I cut you off, and I apologize, was that you don't think Vince possibly did this? It doesn't seem possible.
No, it doesn't make sense to me. To me, there's no common sense in it. I mean, why? You know, I can't see that he done anything. I don't know this girl. I don't. You know, I think I left in 2013.
Right.
So there wasn't anybody around. You know, and as an agent, you know, with the girls. I mean, I went to what do they call those juries before a trial. With Nicole Bass, you know, they interviewed
Inquisition,
me.
I think, or something.
No, it's something jury, you know, and they decide whether you're going to go
deliberation or something like that.
No, it wasn't.
But go ahead. I think they get the idea.
Yeah. Anyway, I was there for 7 friggin' hours, and she was lying, right? Like she's sitting on the other side of the table, and I know Nicole, you know, and then they were saying, well, yeah, Tony Garea walked into the girls' dressing room. I never in my life walked into a girls' dressing room. I'd knock on the door, and I said, I have to speak with so-and-so, you know, and they'd look around, is everybody, you know, good, you know? And I said, you know, I'd like to see so-and-so, you know, and they'd come outside, and they close the door. And, you know, she says, I just walked in on them, you know, and she was bare-breasted, you know, which was a blatant lie.
How does that make you feel? Because this is like your family, right? In a lot of ways. How does that make you feel when someone, for whatever reason, well, we know what reason, right, about the old mighty dollar, lies on you like that? How hurtful does that feel?
Oh, yeah, and then, you know, right then I'd say, well, this person's a liar, so everything comes out of her mouth is a liar. But, you know, I went to court, too, you know, on the same thing, and I'm questioned, you know, by a lawyer, and the judge is sitting up here, and I'm just going, you know, telling the thing, and I was actually quite complimented. They said, boy, yeah, you know, you were convincing in there. But well, I was telling the truth.
You're telling the truth, yeah. You're going to be convincing
anybody.
Right,
you know, if it's the truth, it's the truth. Yeah, it just boggles me that, you know, they got to do that, and they've had an opportunity, you know, to do well, you know, by signing on with the company, and then they're going to cripple it.
So it brings me to another question. Why do you think in today's society, when someone is giving an opportunity and they fail at the opportunity they give it to, they feel the necessity to blame someone else for their failures? What is that all about?
Yeah, I have no idea. I think it seems to be, if I can say this, the legal system. They have a law for everything, and if there's not a law, then they make up a law, and say there is a law. I just stay away. I just want to live my life and just enjoy. Go to happy hour with my old boys.
I say it all the time now,
Yeah.
Tony. At my job now, I don't say anything to anybody. I got nothing to say. Like
Yeah.
I run a certain company, right? And
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not talking to any employees anymore.
Yeah.
Because you know what? God forbid you say the wrong word
Oh,
nowadays.
yeah.
You're done. You're done. You became a road agent.
Mhm.
Did you become a road agent? And again, I'm asking is because Vince Sr. wanted Junior to take care of guys like you because of his loyalty to you? Or did you become a road agent because Vince Jr., and this is your opinion, obviously, had so much respect for you as not just a wrestler, but as a wrestling mind?
Well, I think, first of all, Chief Jay Strongbow, who, him and I became, quite close, and my wrestling career was over, and I was, ready to go back to New Zealand, I guess, after spending all that time here. When I came here, I didn't know how long I was going to be here. I thought it would be a year, then it was 2 years, then it was 3. And he asked me, he said, Tony, do you want to become a road agent? And I said, I don't know. He said, yeah, you'd be good because you stick to yourself. You're not out, partying with the guys every night and all that. So then he suggested it to Vince, and then I went on the road with the Chief. I learned a lot about wrestling and the psychology of it with Strongbow, and also, being an agent. He was like my mentor up here. And strangely enough, Jack Briscoe was very good friends with Strongbow when Jack Briscoe started. So it was like the three of us were interlocked type thing. And I used to go down to Strombow's place in Georgia, and I'd stay over, and his wife would cook for us, and we'd go out, and I'd help him with the barn, doing some fixer-upper, and then we'd go to the pawn shop, and see what the guys got.
I got to tell you, Tony, I'm listening to you, and the way you tell your stories, you're like bringing me back into my youth. And then I'm looking at the smile on your face, and I mean, no wonder you're the icon that you are.
Thank you.
No, don't thank me. Thank you, and I'm sure everybody watching is thanking you. You're not in the Hall of Fame.
No,
which is utterly insane at this point, right? Hashtag Tony Garea Hall of Fame. I'm putting you on the spot. A couple of questions.
Yeah.
You seem like you are a straight-up guy. May 23rd, 1999, Owen Hart falls to his death.
Oh,
You're in
God,
charge. Tell me about that night, and do you shut down the pay-per-view?
No, Bruce Pritchard, he was at the gorilla position, and he's saying, Owen's down. And I thought they'd started the match. And I said, what are you talking about? He's down, he's in the ring. And I raced down there. I was one of the first down there. And I look in there, and Owen's there, and I hear, I said, he's still alive. And, they took him off, and I'm under the impression that, that he was still alive. And he was in the hospital, and I didn't hear anything, until later that night, I think. So they kept on, running the show. And, but Christ, I went to his funeral up in Calgary, and I must have kept his armband for 7, 8 years in my bedroom.
Wow.
Oh, I love that guy. And he asked me questions about things outside the business, boy, it's, you got me there.
Not trying to get you, but November 9th, 1997, the Montreal Screwjob. Work or a shoot?
No, I believe that was a shoot. I was there, and and then something twigged me. I talked to Jack Lanza, about something. I said, "What do he said, I'll talk to you later," which was unusual because I was with Jack almost every day at that point. And then I said, something's up, that's weird. And then the thing happened, and I looked at Earl, the referee, and he was like, like a bloody rabbit, I got to get the hell out of here. And then, because Vince was down there to make sure it happened, I guess. But I think maybe 3, 4 people knew. I don't even think Sean knew.
Mm.
It's just they worked that segment into the match, and it seemed normal. It's something that I've done. I'll put a hold on you early in the match, and then it doesn't work, and then when we get to the end, we'll do the same thing, and it works that way. Yeah, but and then Brett knocked him out.
Yeah.
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 Bam.
So shoot.
Yeah, but
Tony Garea says it's a shoot.
Oh yeah.
All right, I get in trouble for mentioning this person
Mm-hmm.
on the show a bit, but I think it's important that a lot of times I bring it up because a lot of wrestling fans upset me. And again, I'm asking you about it. It doesn't matter what I think.
Mm-hmm.
I have my opinions, and everybody knows it. But the night Chris Benoit kills his family,
Oh God.
are you shocked?
Yeah.
And I guess my point to you is, what were your interactions with Benoit?
Yeah. Well, I got on well with Chris, but I noticed a couple of times, went to the hotel bar after and have a drink, and I said, okay, I'm going up, and then he just like almost insist that I had another beer, and I said, okay, because
Wait
I
a minute,
probably
Tony.
only had
Don't.
one.
No, you're not going anywhere. You need to have another beer. No, I'm going up the rest. No,
Yeah.
you're having another beer.
Yeah, and I thought that was kind of, kind of weird. But otherwise, he was very low key, kind of guy. And we were having a pay-per-view, and he didn't show up. And Dean Malenko was a good close friend of his, and he tried to call, and there was no call. And then I don't know when we got the word, that what happened had happened, but it was like, holy moly. What the hell is going on? Yeah, it was a big shock to everybody, I believe.
Do you think certain wrestling fans are out of line, still showing respect to a Chris Benoit?
Well, if that everybody's different, and if that's what they feel, but I don't know what kind of prescription drugs he was taking. I'm dead against prescription drugs. I don't give a damn what it's for. I haven't taken anything in 24 years. I haven't taken over the counter in 12.
All right, now I got to ask you, right?
Yeah.
I mean, great shape, and you're a big dude.
Yeah.
Never hit the gas?
Never hit the gas.
Wow.
Yeah. But having said that, I got 3 grandsons. One is 18. He's 6'5.5". He's 370 pounds. He was a hockey goalie in high school just last year, and he won in Connecticut, I think, the Player of the Year or whatever. And then I got another one, 5'10", is 340.
Holy
but he
cow.
was in high school squatting 500 pounds. And then the other one's 6'4", and he's 315
Then
pounds.
your old man must have been a big dude.
No, he probably big for his age. He was born in 1888 in Croatia, where there's some pretty big guys in that area, and he was only like 5'10", and he was about 200 pounds. But he had forearms. He probably had a 16-inch forearm, and he had a fist bigger than mine. It was about 3/4 of an inch wider. But he worked with his hands all his life.
Amazing.
Yeah. But then on the other side, I've got a cousin. We kind of grew up together, and Alan's about 5. No, he's about 6'2", and he's about 280, 290 pounds. So we got some big people in the family.
You ain't kidding. I want to thank you. Mm-hmm. I could talk to you for 50 hours.
I can't believe it.
I had the great. Again, I want to thank you, and I'll thank you for my partner who is having a special weekend. I cannot wait to speak to him. Mm-hmm. I want to thank you as a wrestling fan. Thank you for what you've done for this industry, and anybody who has an opportunity to meet this icon, he's at WrestleCon tomorrow. I think that's under, I think, Wrestling 80s Con. So go there, meet the great Tony Garea.
Thank you.
Tony, I got to tell you, I just can't say enough how much you mean to me on a personal basis. And your honesty and your candidness was incredible. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. And if I could just take a minute to, to thank everybody that supported me during my career, because I definitely couldn't have done it without you. And I still have all my parts. My hips are my hips, my shoulders are my shoulders. I keep my fingers crossed. And when I get to the gym in the morning, I just make sure I get out of there in one piece.
I think you'll get out of there in one piece, my friend. Ladies and gentlemen, the great Tony Garea. We'll be back with Mr. McGee in probably about 10 minutes. And, Tony, you'll take a powder. And don't leave. I got to take a picture with you, man.
Sure.
The great Tony Garea. Yeah. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We'll see you in about 5 minutes.